President. Thank you, distinguished colleagues. Today, I come to present a motion with regards to the urgent need to intervene in the flight of communities displaced and forced to seek refuge in Benin Republic as a result of the incessant attack by bandits and suspected herdsmen in Ogun State. Mr. President, you recall the recent spate of attacks by suspected bandits and herdsmen in communities in the Yewa area of Ogun State. Note that many of these attacks by suspected herdsmen on the area remain perennial, owing to the near absence of police and other security personnel in the affected communities. Disturbed that these attacks have brought unquantifiable damage to facilities which will have ensured the welfare of the residents and inhabitants of these communities. Further disturbed that many communities, namely Asa, Oho, Agboro, Moro, Ibeko, Agbon Ojodu, were affected by the criminal activities of these suspected herdsmen. Aware that the countless attacks by these criminal elements have forced many residents of these areas have deserted and relocated to a refugee camp in Kobe, area of Benin Republic, in search of safety, with many of them forced to live in very unfavorable conditions in the refugee camps. Mr. President, it will interest you to know I visited some of these communities. All the women have fled. They've fled to the neighboring country, Benin Republic, and they are all living in these unfavorable conditions. Further aware that the position of the Nigerian Red Cross Society, which followed an informed on-the-spot assessment of the affected communities, was described by the Executive Secretary of the Society in Ogun State, Mr. Oluwole Abayode, as very serious disaster, a serious word of the highest order. Aware also that the Red Cross organization, the only recognized organization that has been proven that are providing intermediate aids for these displaced persons, has had to issue out statements seeking assistance from well-meaning Nigerians for members of these affected communities. Disturbed that the state government alone cannot be left with the onerous task of resettling these displaced citizens. Hence, the need for support from the federal government to effectively return the affected citizens back to their various communities. Further disturbed that if the Benin Republic, that is a neighbor to Nigeria, could accommodate Nigerians in time of crisis, give them food and set up a refugee camp for them, Nigeria needs to positively step up on how we treat our citizens who are victims of an internally induced crisis. Concerned that if the nation is not urgently and properly attended to, it will undermine the country's international standing and credibility and cause an itch in our relations with our neighbor. Mr. President, the Senate seek accordingly resolves to call on the National Emergency Management Agency, NEMA, the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs, and the Border Community Development Agency to undertake an on-the-spot assessment of the affected communities with a view of determining the extent of the problem and provide relief to the affected persons. Call on the concerned authorities to pursue and put in place necessary mechanisms for the reparation and relocation of the affected peoples and the communities. And lastly, call on the authorities of the Nigerian Police Force to see to the provision of police posts and ensuring police presence in these communities so as to ensure security and rekindle the people's confidence in their government. I so move. Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, colleagues.
Implored, according to some of the prayers in the motion, that we should do everything humanly possible to bring back those our citizens that have relocated, so I heard, and I saw the video too, that they are now in Republic of Benin. So the government will do everything humanly possible to make sure that they are brought back home, and we should get all the necessary security apparatus in place for them to be comfortable to stay within. So that would be my short comment and support for this motion. Thank you.
At these red chambers. Mr. Senate President, I'm a bit concerned that this issue is gradually creating a wall of division in our country. Hence, the handling of this matter, we must be absolutely very careful in how we handle this matter. I rise to speak that a criminal remains a criminal in whatever form or shape he or she comes. We must learn to separate criminals from where they come from and deal with them as criminals, such that when we mention herdsmen, it does not look like a Fulani man attacking a Yoruba man. Or when we mention kidnappers, it does not mean that somebody from the south or southeast is attacking the north. Or when we mention Boko Haram, it does not look like a northerner is attacking the other. So we must be very careful, because this bunch of criminals are gradually finding their way in creating a wall of division. The unity of this country is very clear at this moment, and we must do everything to protect it. One thing that gives me concern is that I keep wondering that we do not have probably more than 50,000 criminals in this country from records that we've seen. But my question is, how can 50,000 criminals defeat 200 million people? It then means that the 50,000 criminals are united while the 200 million people are divided. We need to unite and be able to tag these criminals by their names and not by where they come from. In that case, we shall be winner in this battle. Thank you, Mr. President.
We'll go to the prayers. Prayer in the Ministry of Humanitarian Affairs and the Border Communities Development Agency, BCDA, to undertake an on-the-spot assessment of the affected communities with a view to determining the extent of the problem and providing relief to the affected persons. Those in favor of prayer 1, say aye. Those against, say nay. Prayer 2, call on the concerned authorities to put in place necessary mechanism for reparation and relocation of the affected peoples and communities. Those in favor of prayer 2, say aye. Those against, say nay. And prayer 3, call on the authorities of the Nigerian police force to see to the provision of police posts and ensuring police presence in this community so as to ensure security and rekindle the people's confidence. Those in favor of prayer 3, say aye. Those against, say nay. Leader of the Senate.